People say you need a super long telephoto lens in order to do wildlife photography. But what if you don't? This past month, I've been challenging myself to use only a 135mm full frame lens for wildlife photography to see if I can create some of my best art when standards say I can't.
The typical tool of choice in any wildlife photographer's bag is a super telephoto lens looking something like this, or even this. Reason being, it gives you an incredible reach, sometimes referred to as zoom, to be able to see the wildlife up close. I've been getting bored of my photos feeling and looking the same for a while, so this past month, I challenged myself to use only a 135mm lens to capture birds. Backed out 5 times wider than a standard bird photography lens, this is going to be a challenge. But a challenge I'm excited to take on and see what new art I can create with it. I started out my morning with this lens at a familiar river nearby, but to my dismay, the birds were all too far off for a lens like this. I should have known better, but lesson learned, I needed to pick locations that I knew would get closer in with birds. We did watch an osprey dive and snatch a fish, and some belted kingfishers out in the distance, but ultimately, nothing came of those photos. I walked over towards the sunflower patch and did manage to get close enough to film a Lincoln sparrow, but once again, no good shots. The first morning I took out this lens, I had an incredible time with it and captured some images that inspired me to do this video. I was walking around a park and found a family of scrub jays foraging through the trees. It was so fun watching the children hopping along and following in the footsteps of mom and dad, learning how to catch their meals. I spent a solid hour with them laying there in the grass and wound up getting some fantastic scenic shots of them amongst the sunlit trees, and even some shots of the parents feeding the begging younglings. I love the perspective you get of how tiny they truly are amongst the tall trees, and out of all of them, this one turned out to be my favorite.
So those pigeons like to just hang out in the mornings taking baths on our little pool rim. So if I get into the right position behind them, I think we can get some pretty cool shots.
Day 1 was a failure. After almost an hour of waiting and needing to head out to do work, they didn't stop by until, of course, I left. Day 2 was of course a miss too, but then day 3 swung around.
Okay, so I just got my moment with the pigeon right in front of me on the ledge there that I have in the pool in our backyard. But unfortunately, man, the sun just disappeared. It happened to be a cloudy day and the clouds are coming in. I was seeing it coming all morning, and about a minute before the pigeon came, the lighting just disappeared in the background. So I didn't get the background that I wanted with that gorgeous backlight, the light seeping through the trees like I was hoping. I also got a pretty interesting silhouette shot in the reflection of my pool by looking down in it as the pigeon was approaching on flight. And so I'm not quite sure if I like it yet, but I guess we'll see in the editing.
By this point, while I could have gotten better, I didn't want to go around wasting my time on backyard pools and pigeons. So I headed off to our next location to test this lens. And man, was it worth it. I started off around some mud pools that the ducks were digging through, getting some easy close-up encounters and stunning wider shots with reflections in the water. I never thought capturing a mallard would be so fun, but I was having a blast. Sometimes looking through your camera with a fresh new perspective can spark whole new levels of excitement and creativity when you've been doing the same for so long. I moved more towards the lake and started capturing images off the water's edge. Here, I got some images that really shined, including these Canada geese images. Once again, basic birds, but put into a whole new light with this lens. Even better yet were the iconic wood ducks of America floating by, in which I managed to capture some images I really liked, including the pair of them too. And most proudly, this one here with the earthy tones of the scene matching the earth tones of the duck. Behind me, I started getting distracted by some wood ducks looking silly up in the trees. It's funny to see ducks foraging on tree limbs for food with their clunky bodies, but they were enjoying the feast above. And down below, mallards and geese were picking up the scraps. Right next to the parking lot, I got up close and pulled off some incredible close-ups on these guys, and even a squirrel popping out of a hole, and a pet turtle chilling on the dirt. A stunning male wood duck roamed his way through the crowd at one point, and I wound up getting some shots of him once again too. I walked a ways down the lake and found another spot with some great grass to use as foreground for a Canada goose relaxing by the lake. Taken about 10 feet away and then cropped in, the detail on these shots are incredible. And even though I'm more backed out, the sharpness and depth of field makes for a beautiful look.
Something that's really cool about a lens like this is that it's just so shallow that it really shines with a high megapixel camera like this. Sometimes I feel like the high megapixels can be a little unnecessary, but with the lens as shallow as this, I can actually use the megapixels to crop in 2 to even 4 times as much if I need to, and it still looks like it has that really shallow depth of field that you get on higher aperture lenses. I know what you're thinking though, and probably wondering if the glass quality and sharpness in the glass can actually holding up to cropping in that heavily. And to be honest, I can say I have never used a lens as sharp as this. I can't speak for all 135s, but this Sigma 135mm 1.8 is undoubtedly the sharpest lens I've ever used, and I feel very comfortable cropping it to my megapixel limits on my camera. I'm gonna be releasing a full review on this lens that'll go way more in detail about it coming up in a week, so make sure to stay subscribed to the channel if you want to see that when it comes out.
Just before the sun came up over the trees, I was photographing along this ridge when I got this interesting dirt scene stretching around a male wood duck close by that I liked. Off to my side, 2 male wood ducks sat side by side under a canopy and perfect for a scenic shot too. The sun started peeking over the trees and I returned to the water side, capturing some fantastic light, wood ducks fluffing in the distance, and backlight seeping through the trees behind them. I was overwhelmed with the amount of good photos I had captured in only an hour and a half's worth of morning. This lens has been an absolute game changer so far in how I see my wildlife photography after using the same style lens for year after year. Only 1 month in, I'm finding myself craving using it more and more. It's also a great reminder to me that wildlife photography isn't only about the epic mountaintop adventures, but great wildlife photos can even be captured here at home, at your local pond. I'm excited to see what more comes of using this lens and how I can use it to revolutionize my photography moving forward. If you want to see my in-depth review I'm releasing on this lens, subscribe to the channel, and if you want to join me in tracking down the rarest bird in the forest, check out this video here in the end screen.